this is really something that's important. If you're making telephone calls to outside parties that you're not currently doing business with, you better make sure they're not on the national do not call list. All right, so how many telephone numbers can the system handle? Well, we've got one customer in Germany that has over 40 million telephone calls. Well, how does this work? How does this application work? Basically, what this tool does is it looks at the telephone number that's being dialed, and there's a few milliseconds of time between when the user says, "Okay, dial this number," and the time that it actually starts ringing at the other end. There's some milliseconds in there. And so what we've done is we take these 40 million telephone numbers and we put them into an in-memory list, which means that we can search that list really, really quickly. And if we find the telephone number that they dialed in the list, then we drop the call. And when we drop the call, we then send an email to the manager and to the employee saying, you made a telephone call to a number that's on the national do not call list. All right, so this tool can protect your organization from significant fines and legal action. It's really a big deal. But we also allow you to selectively bypass certain employees. So you can set extensions that are allowed to bypass it. You can also use this as either a blacklist or a whitelist. So you can turn this up on its head. I don't remember the circumstances under which the customer did this, but they had a scenario where they said that you can only call people in this list. And if you try to call somebody that's not in this list, it'll get blocked. So you can use do not call for a whitelist or for a blacklist. All right, so let's take a look at this application. So again, we're going to log in with our 3CX extension and voicemail pin as soon as it wakes up. There we go. And I should mention, with all of these tools, when I log in, it looks at what my permissions are in 3CX. So in this case, if I'm not a manager, I can't log into this application and make changes. It's only managers and system admins that can get access to this tool. So if you're not, it's going to come back and tell you a message, you're not authorized to access this application. So we are looking in 3CX for what your permissions are to control what menu options display on these tools. All right, so the first step in setting up Do Not Call is to import the list of telephone numbers. And this is really pathetically simple. You just browse to the CSV file containing the telephone numbers. And then I will say get fields here. And what it'll do is it'll read that CSV file into memory, and it'll look at the first row to get the column headings. And then it will display those column headings in this list box here on the right. And then you just map the fields from the CSV file to the appropriate field in the Do Not Call database using this arrow here. Once you've got them mapped together, then you just press the import button and it'll add all the numbers here. So you see I've got a couple in here just so that you can see. Well, what if there's a telephone number that I want to be able to bypass? You can just come in here and you can whitelist certain extensions that are available to access that given telephone number, right? So again, millions of telephone numbers. I would be remiss, though, if I didn't point out one important fact. And this is specific to the United States. Curiously, the United States government has not decided to make this list of telephone numbers a central database. these do not call lists are administered by each individual state. Further, they charge for those telephone numbers. So I wish that I could just give you a button that you push and it goes and grabs all of the telephone numbers and puts them in the list. But unfortunately, it's about $1,500 last time I checked to get all of the different states do not call lists. So there is some cost above our software to get all of the telephone numbers from the do not call list. The nice thing is that if you import telephone numbers again, it's going to see those that you've already imported them. But there's a couple of other fields here that I should point out. One is the registration date, so that's just the date that the number was created or imported. But another is an expiration date. So if you import a list, you know it's good for a year, you're going to set an expiration date. If the next year comes around and you import the list and that number isn't on the list anymore, we've got an expiration date. We can remove that telephone number from the do not call list, and then you can call them again because they're not on the do not call list anymore. And of course, a description would just be information. So this would be typically a person's name or a business name or something like that. So basically, that's what that's all about. Again, like the other applications, you have to specify who's going to be notified. So these are a list of extensions, and you can just notify who's going to get notifications when somebody dials a do not call number. There's reports here real quickly. I guess there's a report, and it's basically a list of extensions, who the agent was, what number they dialed, and the date and time. So if somebody's consistently trying to call numbers that are on the do not call list, you now know. You can also see if somebody dials something on the do not call list and somebody complains that you're calling, you can go, no, look, I can see you were blocked. We tried to call you that day and it didn't happen because it's right here. All right, so that's the do not call application. So with that, guys, I'm going to say thank you for your time. I do appreciate it, and look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you.